Good day. For today's lecture, we will be covering Chapter 5, Motivating Behavior of Organizational Behavior, Managing People and Organizations, 13th edition by Ricky W. Griffin. For the chapter learning objectives, after the lecture, you should be able to 1. Characterize the nature of motivation, including its historical perspectives and its importance. Number 2, identify and describe the need-based perspectives on motivations. Number 3, identify and describe the major process-based perspectives. And lastly, number 4, describe learning-based perspectives on motivations, which will all be discussed in this lecture. So for nature of motivation, first things first. Motivation is defined as the set of forces that lead people to behave in particular ways. It is also a means to induce certain desirable attitudes or values in a person, right? So, motivation is indeed important as it is expressed through the equation job performance P is equal to motivation M multiplied by ability A and environment E. So, job performance has these three components within each other, and all these components coexist to make the other components valuable. Supposedly that motivation is at a value of 1, let's say, then perhaps the ability A and environment E won't procure a desirable job performance or experience. So, currently on your screen is the motivational framework. The framework simplifies how motivational processes occur. So, for instance, when people experience a need deficiency or the lack of a need, such as, let's say, gratification or fulfillment in the job, afterwards, the motivational framework suggests that there is a need. The employee searches for ways to satisfy these needs and is presented afterwards with choices towards goal-directed behaviors. And then, employees would actually implement these goal-directed behaviors, right? So, the last phases are merely reconfiguration or reflection, so to speak. So, should the goal-directed behavior merit a reward, the employee would be incentivized to keep at it and would stop if it merited a punishment. So, in a nutshell, right? So, it's experience. The employees experience a shortcoming, right? Think about what you want to do it, then assess if you want to keep doing it. That's the whole motivational framework in a nutshell. So to further enrich the understanding of motivational framework, the following is a list of definitions that I just used in the framework. So, needs is defined as anything an individual requires or wants. So, a need deficiency is the trigger in the person to think, oh, I want this, right? I want that. And then, goal-directed behavior is created from individuals trying to satisfy their need deficiency. Essentially, the result from individuals trying to satisfy their need deficiency, and that could either end in a reward or in a punishment. And lastly, reassessment of need deficiency. This is the reflection stage, as I just said, of whether the individual would like to continue or backpedal into the status quo should it have been a punishment.
Early perspectives on motivation. The traditional approach. Scientific management approaches to motivation that assumes that employees are motivated by money. The human relations approach suggests that fostering a sense of employees' inclusion in decision making will result in positive employee attitudes and motivation to work hard. The human resource approach assumes that people want to contribute and are able to make genuine contributions. Individual differences and motivation. Task-specific self-efficacy. A person's belief in his or her capabilities to do what is required to accomplish a specific task. The three dimensions of self-efficacy are the following. Magnitude. beliefs about how difficult a task can be accomplished. Strength, beliefs about how confident the person is that the specific task can be accomplished. Generality, beliefs of how the degree to which similar tasks can be accomplished. Need-based theories assume that needs deficiencies cause behavior. The hierarchy of needs assumes that humans' needs are arranged in a hierarchy of importance. Number one is the basic or deficiency needs. Under this is the psychological, security, and belongingness. Next one is the growth needs. Under this is esteem and self-actualization. Maslow's hierarchy of needs consists of 5 basic categories of needs. This figure illustrates both general and organizational examples of each type of need. Of course, each individual has a wide variety of specific needs within each category. The first one is self-actualization needs. In general examples is achievements. Organizational examples is the challenging job. Next is the esteem needs. General example is the status. Organizational example is the job title. The next one is belongingness needs. The general example is friendship, and the organizational example is the friends in work group. Next is the security needs. The general example is stability. The organizational example is the pension plan. And lastly, the psychological needs. The general example is the sustenance, and the organizational example is the base salary.
Need-based perspectives on motivation. ERG theory. E is for existence, R is for relatedness, and G is for growth and needs. Assumptions. More than one may motivate a person at the same time. Satisfaction, progression, and frustration regression components. The two-factor theory identifies motivation factors which affect satisfactions and hygiene factors which determine the dissatisfaction. Development of the theory. We have motivation factors and hygiene factors. For motivation factors, intrinsic to the work itself and include factors such as achievement and recognition. Hygiene factors extrinsic to the work itself and include factors such as pay and job security. The two-factor theory of motivation. Herzberg's two-factor theory suggests that motivation and hygiene factors impact satisfaction and dissatisfaction dimensions in the workplace, contrasting traditional views of satisfaction and dissatisfaction. Traditional views satisfaction and no satisfaction. Herzberg's view, satisfaction and no satisfaction. Motivation factors are achievement, recognition, the work itself and responsibility, and enhancement and growth. Hygiene factors are supervision, work conditions, interpersonal relationships, pay and job security, company policies. Need-based perspectives on motivation. The acquired needs framework centers on the needs for achievement, affiliation, and power. Need for achievement. The desire to accomplish a task or a goal more effectively than what's done in the past. Need for affiliation. The need of human companionship. Need for power. The desire to control the resources in one's environment.
Process-based perspectives on motivation. Process-based perspectives. First, focus on how people behave in their efforts to satisfy their needs. Second, how people evaluate their satisfaction after they have attained these goals. And third, includes equity and expectancy theories. The equity theory of motivation. Equity theory focuses on people's desire to be treated with what they perceive as equity and to avoid perceived inequity. Equity, the belief that we are being treated fairly in relation to others. Inequity is the belief that we are being treated unfairly in relation to others. Forming equity perceptions focuses on the desire to be treated with equity and to avoid perceived inequity. People from equity perceptions by comparing their situations with that of someone else's. If they perceive equity, they are motivated to maintain the current situation. If they perceive inequity, they are motivated to use one more of the strategies shown here to reduce the inequity. Motivations to reduce inequity. Change inputs, change outcomes, alter perceptions of self, alter perceptions of other, change comparisons, and leave situations. The expectancy theory of motivation. Expectancy theory suggests that people are motivated by how much they want something and the likelihood they perceive of getting it. Key components. Effort to performance expectancy. The perceived probability that effort will lead to performance. Performance to outcome expectancy. The perceived probability that performance will lead to certain outcomes. Outcome. Anything that results from performing a behavior. Balance. The degree of attractiveness or unattractiveness value that a particular outcome has for a person. The basic expectancy model. Victor Broom is generally credited with first applying the theory to motivation in the workplace. The model's general components are effort, the result of motivated behavior, performance, and outcomes. The expectancy theory is the most complex model of employee motivation in organizations. As shown here, the key components of expectancy theory are effort-based performance expectancy, performance to outcome instrumentality, and outcomes, each of which has an associated balance. These components interact with efforts, the environment, and the ability to determine an individual's performance. Effort. Effort to performance expectancy, environment, performance, and ability. Performance to outcome instrumentality. Balance of the outcome.
Process-based perspective on motivation. Effort to performance expectancy. It is a person's perception of the probability that effort will lead to performance. Next is performance to outcome instrumentality. It is the individual's perception of the probability that performance will lead to certain outcomes. And next is the outcomes and balances. Outcome, it is anything that results from performing a particular behavior. And next is the balance, the degree of attractiveness or unattractiveness a particular outcome has for a person. And last is the Victor Broom. It is generally credited with the first applying the theory to motivation in the workplace. It is the behavior model's general components or effort or the result of motivated performance and outcomes. The Porter-Lawler model. It focuses on the relationship between satisfaction and performance. It assumes that if rewards are adequate, high levels of performance may lead to satisfaction, and satisfaction is determined by the perceived of equity of intrinsic or intangible and extrinsic or tangible rewards for performance. The figure 5.6 shown the Porter-Lawler model. The Porter and Lawler expectancy model provides interesting insights into the relationship between satisfaction and performance. As illustrated here, this model predicts that satisfaction is determined by the perceived equity of intrinsic and extrinsic rewards for performance. That is, rather than satisfaction causing performance, which people might predict, this model argues that it is actually performance that eventually leads to satisfaction. Evaluation and implications. Expectancy theory has been tested by many different researchers in a variety of settings and using a variety of methods. Expectancy theory is so complicated that researchers have found it quite difficult to test. Confirmed expectancy theory claims that people will not engage in motivated behavior unless it's value the expected rewards, believe their effort will lead to performance, and lastly, believe their performance will result in a desired rewards. The next is learning-based perspective on motivation. Learning, a relatively permanent change in behavior or behavioral potential resulting from direct or indirect experience. How learning occurs. Traditional view. Classical conditioning, a simple form of learning that links a conditioned response with an unconditioned stimulus. Next is contemporary view. Learning as cognitive process. It assumes people are conscious, active participants in how they learn. Reinforcement theory in learning. Reinforcement theory, based on the idea that behavior is a function of its consequences. Next is operant conditioning or Skinner. Behavior is a function of its consequences, and reinforcement is the consequences of behavior. Social learning. When people observe the behavior of others, recognize the consequences, and alter their own behavior as a result. Behavior being observed and imitated must be relatively simple. Observed and imitated behavior must be concrete and not intellectual. And lastly is learner must have the physical ability to imitate the observed behavior. Behavior modification, the application of reinforcement theory to influence the behavior of its people and organizational settings. There are four kinds of reinforcement. The first one is the positive reinforcement, a reward or other desirable consequences that a person receives after exhibiting behavior. Next is the negative reinforcement, the opportunity to avoid or escape from an unpleasant circumstances after exhibiting the behavior. The third one is the punishment, an unpleasant or adversive consequences that result from behavior. And lastly is the extinction, decreases the frequency of behavior by eliminating a reward or desirable consequences that follow that behavior.
Social learning in organizations occurs when people observe the behavior of others, recognize the consequences, and alter their own behavior as a result. Conditions for social learning. Behavior being observed and imitated must be relatively simple. Observed and imitated behavior must be concrete, not intellectual. Learner must have the physical ability to imitate the observed behavior. Behavior modification. This is the application of reinforcement theory to influence the behaviors of people in organizational settings. Individual behavior can be affected when stimulus is either presented or removed after a particular behavior. This is also dependent on whether the stimulus is positive or negative. So now we have this table. There are two natures of stimulus, the positive and the negative. Also, there are two actions, the presenting of the stimulus and the removing of the stimulus. Positive reinforcement increases the behavior is the positive nature of presenting it, while punishment decreases the behavior is the negative nature of it. Second is the removing of stimulus. Extinction decreases the behavior is the positive nature of removing it, while negative reinforcement increases the behavior is the negative nature of it. So now we have four timing of reinforcement. First, we have the fixed ratio. Behaviors reinforced according to the number of behaviors exhibited, with the number of behaviors needed to gain reinforcement held constant. Second, we have the fixed interval. Behaviors reinforced according to the number predetermined constant schedule based on time. Third, we have the variable ratio. Behaviors reinforced according to the number of behaviors exhibited, but the number of behaviors needed to gain reinforcement varies from one time to the next. And last, we have the variable interval. Behaviors reinforce after periods of time, but the time span varies from one time to the next. Motivating the right behavior. Define the problem. What is it that could be improved? Identify and define the specific behaviors you wish to change. Record and track the occurrence of the target behavior. Analyze the current negative consequence of the undesired behavior and arrange for a more positive consequence to follow the desired behavior. And last, evaluate whether the behavior is improved and by how much. Different motivation concepts and theories can be applied to various managerial challenges to enhance employees' motivation. As you can see, we have 6 motivational theories, namely the self-efficacy, McClelland's theory, Herzberg's two-factor theory, expectancy theory, equity theory, and reinforcement. We also have the 5 managerial challenges. First, we have the firm that has a low-cost business strategy but needs to motivate its employees. Next is that an employee feels he cannot meet his performance goals. Third is that an employee engages in inappropriate behavior, bullying or ridiculing co-workers. A talented employee is not feeling challenged at work is the fourth. And lastly, because the work is repetitive, some employees find it boring and hard to stay motivated.